Hey guys, CoffinSkate here, and I want to talk about why I personally prefer physical games over digital games. And I thought this would be an interesting sort of topic to go over, especially with some of the stuff we've been hearing recently with video games and specifically physical media just kind of being phased out. There are some retailers, namely Best Buy comes to mind, that are phasing out physical media. Not so much video games. Best Buy will still be selling video games. I know that's I know that seems to be what many people are believing, but that's not actually the case. They're still going to be selling physical video games. When it comes to Xbox, that might be a different story, but physical PlayStation and Switch games and whatnot, they're still going to be selling those. It's more with Blu-rays, DVDs, CDs, what have you. Whereas we're also starting to see, I think there are rumors that Walmart will no longer be carrying physical Xbox games. And then that also kind of goes into Microsoft no longer selling, or no longer, apparently their physical game division is kind of, apparently from my understanding that kind of dissolved, or I don't know what the whole situation is on that, but this is just some of the stuff that's been going on with physical media, and then we also have some stuff going on with digital content, and the fact that some games are getting are having their online servers being shut down. For instance, The Crew. I know not everyone really cared about The Crew, from my understanding, but that's one of those games where when they shut down the servers for that game, it will no longer be playable. You also have games just being moved from the PlayStation Store. Although I can't really think of anything that has been sort of delisted recently. If there is stuff that I'm probably just forgetting off the top of my head, let me know. But just, I should say, over the years we've seen games being delisted, and we've seen digital storefronts getting shut down from back in like PS3, Xbox 360 days with the delisting of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, which has since been re-released on modern platforms, and now having a physical copy thanks to limited run. We also have Marvel vs. Capcom 2, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Heritage of the Future, I think it was called. I think there's also like an Outrun game as well. Afterburner Climax is another one, which was a awesome game. And now we've since had the Wii Shop channel shut down. We've had the 3DS eShop and the Wii U eShop shut down, as well as the DSiWare shop shut down. So we've seen a lot of and then like a couple of years ago, Sony initially planned to shut down the PlayStation Store for the PS3, Vita, and PSP. They did for the PSP, but after fan outcry, they decided to keep the PS3 and Vita stores up. PSP, they shut that down. However, a lot of PSP games are playable in the Vita now, so it's not a huge deal. And then now we have the Xbox Live Marketplace shutting down for the Xbox 360. So apparently it's supposed to be shutting down in the next couple months. And then also for the 3DS and the Wii U, I'm just not thinking about this. They're going to be shutting down the servers for any sort of online games and Spot Pass for the 3DS. So games like Mario Kart 7, Kid Icarus Uprising, maybe the Pokemon games on the 3DS, they'll be shutting down the servers for those. And I'm assuming basically any Wii U game that had online multiplayer. I'm not sure if it'll include all the everything on the Wii U and 3DS. Like for sure, I know it will include stuff like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That's the only one I can think of in terms of Wii U games that had online play, because I can't really think of anything else aside from that. That's really the only one that I think would be the most important. But aside from that, I'm not sure if like games like Black Ops 2, Call of Duty Ghosts, Mass Effect 3 will have their online shut down the Wii U, but that's that's just what's been going on with digital content and physical games. So that being said, I kind of wrote down like a small list, not a huge one, but basically just the reasons why I personally prefer physical games over digital. So just getting right into it. with a physical game, you own it. You own it. It's no rental or anything, because with digital content, this actually kind of goes into something that I just now remembered. In the EULA, and I learned this from Adam Korlick. He made a few videos talking about digital content recently. And by recently I mean like probably about a month or two ago. I don't know, recently, we'll just say that. Where he was talking about digital content and whatnot. And it says in the EULA that they can basically take that content away from you. And what that can mean is the game can be delisted off PlayStation Store. So PlayStation Store, Nintendo eShop, Steam, Xbox Live Marketplace, just what have you. And so, like, at that point, if you haven't gotten it, if you haven't bought the game, if you haven't bought the game at that point, then you're kind of shit out of luck. They can just take that content away from you. Whereas when you buy a physical game, like Persona 3 Reload right here, great game by the way, I'm really enjoying this. When they, if my account gets banned, which I'm hoping I never run into that issue, but if my account gets banned, I can still pop this into my PlayStation 5 and still play it without having to, I won't have to make a new account and buy the game again and all that shit. But yeah, that they can't take away from me. Whereas with a digital game, they can take that away from you just at a moment's notice. Case in point, PT. That was a free game, but with PT, the whole thing that went down with Silent Hills and whatnot, they just delisted the game off the PlayStation Store, and they even took away the ability to download it. There are ways to re-download it. You have to have it on in your games library, but there are ways to download it. Not playable on a PS5 though. But point being, they did take away that game, and you can't download it anymore. Whereas, like I said, with a physical game, I can pop this into my PlayStation 5 and reinstall it. I can do whatever the hell I want with this. I can lend it to a friend. I can sell it. If I can break the disc if I want to, I'm going to do that. But whereas with a rental or with a digital game, you don't actually own it. So yeah, and like if your account gets banned, you lose access to all those games. Or if they shut down the PlayStation Store, and they even remove the ability, you no longer have the ability to download games. At that point, whatever you have downloaded on your console is what you have. At that point, you no longer have access to those games, or to everything else that you bought. And then that also kind of goes into, with the CMOS bomb issue that the PS3 still has, but the PS4 and the PS5 also had. In the case of the PS3, with digital content, when that CMOS battery dies, you won't be able to access that content. You basically have to get that replaced. But at that point, whenever they inevitably shut down the servers for the PlayStation Store for the PS3, or just PSN for the PlayStation 3, then how are you going to authenticate those games? It's basically like it's basically kind of like a DRM kind of thing at that point. You also have situations like, from my understanding, the Epic Game Store, when you buy a game digitally, or when you buy a game through the Epic Game Store, you still have to be connected to the internet in order to play that game, even for single-player games, which makes no sense. And then also, I think that's also kind of the case for Xbox, even if it's like your home console. I don't own an Xbox, so if I'm wrong about that, please correct me in the comments. But I could be wrong about that. I've heard situations where like the Xbox Live servers were down for maintenance and people weren't able to play their digital games, or in some cases their physical games, which is bullshit. That's not how it should be. When you install a physical game, you shouldn't have to be connected to the servers in order to play that game. But point being, with a physical game, I own it. I can do whatever the hell I want with this. So yeah. Next, can be played without patches, which also kind of goes into another thing. Doesn't require internet. So, which is not always the case. Obviously, with a digital game, you're going to be downloading the patches. You're going to be downloading. It's going to require internet to download it. Now, in a lot of cases, internet is not required to enjoy a game off a physical disc. You know, I don't have to be connected to the internet to play this game or to install a game. I can disconnect from the internet. I can disconnect my console from my Wi-Fi and just install it off the disc and just play it off the disc. I don't need to be connected to the internet in order to play the game. And in a lot of cases, what should be the norm, the game is fully playable without any patches, at least. Now, playable, I should say, because there are instances where the game can actually be completely unplayable without the patches because the game is buggy as hell at launch, which should be illegal as well. Case in point, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Now, I didn't play those games at launch. Or I didn't play Pokemon. That Pokemon Violet was the one I had, or the one I have. I didn't play Pokemon Violet at launch. However, that game was buggy as sin at launch, which shouldn't even be legal. It should be illegal to ship a product that is absolutely that is absolutely unplayable at that point. So Cyberpunk was the same way, but in what should be the norm, and which you still see a lot of, are games that still have at least a 1.0 build up on the disc. You know, having a full playable build on the disc. It may still have bugs and glitches and whatnot, but it's still fully playable from beginning to end, in some way, shape, or form. Even if it still has annoying bugs and shit, it's at least still playable at that point. Which I could also see being a negative for some people. I could totally see that, but you know, at least 30 years from now, when or if they shut down the servers from PlayStation Store for like PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, what have you, say I want to play Elden Ring, there is a 1.0 build on that disc. If I can't download the updates or anything, that's fine. I can at least still play the game in some way, even if it still has issues that would be resolved with patches. But that's a whole different can of worms. So, but yeah, it's now that being said, there's also games. We've also seen a trend with physical games where, with the Call of Duty games, the more recent ones. Say what you will about those games. I know not everyone really cares about them, but I'm just bringing them up as a point. The more recent Call of Duties from Modern Warfare 2019 onwards have had it where when you put the game disc into your console, you're not able to play it off the disc. You have to download a bunch of content from the PlayStation Store, which is not how it fucking should be. That should be illegal, honestly, but because whenever they shut down this, because this kind of goes into, you know, the eventual shutdown of like PlayStation Store and whatnot, and you know, at some point not being able to download content anymore from the PlayStation Store, it kind of goes into that. What are you gonna do? How are you gonna play the game if you don't have it installed and you know the servers for the PlayStation Store have been shut down? You can't download content. I know I keep bringing this up, but I'm really trying to drive this home with you. It's like, you know, it's not really, like, you're not going to be able to play that game anymore because you have to download content that's not on the disc when it should be. And the thing is, 2-disc games were an option. Case in point, Red Dead Redemption 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake, The Last of Us Part 2. You know, these are all games that came on two discs. And hell, on the PlayStation 5, it's still an option. Baldur's Gate 3, the physical copy, it's being put out by Larian. It's also getting that big deluxe edition. It's going to be on 2 discs for the PlayStation 5 and 3 on the Xbox Series X. And more recently, Tekken 8 on the Xbox. is 2 discs, which I think is very interesting. Um, so multiple discs is an option, but for whatever reason, some developers don't seem to want to do that. As a matter of fact, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is one of those instances. And then also with Hogwarts Legacy, I found out recently, does require a 40 gigabyte download from the internet in order to continue playing the game, which is bullshit. So that shouldn't be, like, at that point, why print a physical disc? At that point, just release the game digitally. So, yeah, I'm just saying. And then also, like with Alan Wake 2, that was just completely digital only, so, which is annoying as hell, but, you know, what can you do? I'm holding out for physical copy. I think there was one other game that was announced recently to be digital only. I think Hellblade 2 was one of them. So, but yeah, it's like, yeah, so, next is preservation. You know, with a physical disc, you can preserve this, you know. You know, it's just good for preservation, you know. It's, you know, I don't really have much else to add to that, but yeah, with the digital game, like actually with Alan Wake 2, because the game is digital only, you basically got, if once again, if they shut down servers for PlayStation Store and Xbox Live Marketplace and the Epic Game Store, which is a whole different can of worms of bullshit that I dislike, you know, you basically gotta hope and pray that someone has it downloaded on their console if you can't download the game anymore. And say the game gets delisted somehow. You basically at that point gotta hope and pray that it's saved on a hard drive somewhere. So it's like it's just good for preservation, you know. I don't really know what else to say about it. And then lastly, just a fun little thing. Not everyone's gonna care about this last thing, but sometimes with a physical game, you get like cool bonus items, and sometimes you get a manual and whatnot. Specifically back in the day, with like the PS2, GameCube, and before. PS3, 360, and we also had physical manuals for a while, but after a while, those started to fizzle out. So, Tekken 5, you know, has nothing to do with the actual game itself. Has nothing to do with the video. It's just the game I so happen to choose. When you get a game, you get a manual. You know, which manuals were actually cool. Like, I like manuals. You know, with these you get. I know not everyone's gonna care about these anymore, but you know, you got the controls, and then like it tells you how to play the game, and like in the case of Tekken 5 here, it gives you like some stuff about the characters and like some of their key moves and shit. So, whereas Tekken 8, again, I figured I'd bring this up. I guess I thought it'd just make sense to bring up an older Tekken game, and then, you know, the most recent one, Tekken 8. So, also a great game, by the way. Highly recommend it. With this, you get nothing but a disc and a case. So, no manual. Which, yeah, I miss that about physical games. So, but when I pre-ordered Tekken 8, I pre-ordered this physically, obviously, for the PS5. I thought about pre-ordering it digitally, but with some of the stuff I've been hearing recently with digital content, I'm honestly now at the point where I'm only gonna buy a game digitally if it's literally the only choice I have. So, but anyways, I pre-ordered Tekken 8 from GameStop, and I actually got this little keychain thing. So, I'll show this in a game collection update in the future, but just a fun little keychain. And then this also kind of goes into collector's editions. My go-to example is the Persona 5 Royal Phantom Thieves edition. You know, with a digital game, you're obviously not going to get something like this. It comes in like a fancy box and whatnot. You know, this comes with the game, a steelbook, an art book, soundtrack, a dynamic PS4 theme, actually. So this does actually include some sort of digital content, and a replica replica version of Joker's mask. So you're not going to get something like that with a digital game. Of course, there are digital deluxe editions that come with digital content and whatnot, but that's a whole different can of worms. So Now, that being said, I have nothing against the idea of digital content, specifically like DLC and whatnot, because you mean to tell me I can, a game that absolutely love, I can just get more content for that game, whether it's story content or new character in the case of a fighting game. Like, that's cool as hell. The idea of DLC is cool as hell, and the idea of patches is cool, you know? But, we now live in a time where, like, patches are kind of necessary. Because, like, developers seem to have this mentality where release the game now, fix it later kind of mentality, and I hate that. So that kind of that's like that honestly might be a whole video into itself, but you know, so that being said, physical games, you know, not all sunshine and rainbows. Some things I will say about physical games, disc rot. Now, granted, this is something that most likely most of you probably won't have to worry about because it really just depends on the on the storage situation, or just where you're storing them. It really just depends on, you know, how you're storing them and whatnot. If you're storing them in a environment that's bad for the discs, then yeah, at that point you're going to experience disc rot. But probably a lot of people are not really going to experience that. So, but disc rot is a thing, but a lot of people are probably not going to experience that. So, yeah. Next, patches and also mandatory downloads. I kind of already went into that, but you do have instances where, like, where the game is absolutely busted at launch, and the game requires patches and whatnot. And basically, now with the advent of patches and updates and mandatory downloads, you're not really going to have a full experience if you just install the game off the disc in a lot of cases. Like some of the games I brought up earlier, some of the Call of Duty games, Hogwarts Legacy. I actually found out recently Guilty Gear Strive is like that too. On release, or on the disc, there's only like the first chapter for the story mode, and not all the characters are accessible off the disc. Found that out recently thanks to doesitplay.org, which is a great site, by the way, if you want to figure out if a game is fully playable without patches, or has like no downloads required or anything, or requires a download or some kind. Check out doesitplay.org. It doesn't have everything, but is a great sort of resource to do your research on what games have what require patches and mandatory installs and shit. So mandatory downloads. But yeah, that's basically like the only issues with physical media. That being said, there are some benefits to digital content. First off, convenience. I mean, with a physical game, basically, like with Tekken 8, I had to go out to a store and actually buy this game, which takes up time. And also, kind of goes into, you know, mandatory install kind of thing. I should have brought this up earlier, but now a lot of games, a lot of physical games and whatnot require mandatory installs, so at that point, you just buy the digital game. So, but I also don't mind the mandatory install because, I mean, at least years from now, and I'm not sure if I'll have to worry about this, but years from now I won't have to worry about losing access to this game because I can just install it on my PlayStation 5. I might not, even if many years from now, I'll be able to download the patches or download the DLC. There's still a playable build on the disc. And honestly, what's here, there's enough here for me to just start a new save file, honestly. I could, you know. So, and there are, honestly, a lot of instances like Skyrim and Cyberpunk and shit like that, where there's tons of content where it's like, I could just start a new playthrough, and just have fun with what there is. So, especially if it's a game with lots of content, like Skyrim, Cyberpunk, Elden Ring, the Soulsborne games. So those are just some games that immediately come to mind. So, but yeah, the convenience of just go on the PlayStation Store, the eShop, or what have you, and just download the game and just start playing it. You don't have to wait till the next day wait till launch day in order for the game to show up at like 5 p.m. or some instance. You just start the game. You can just download the game, preload it in some instances, and just start playing it at like midnight, for instance. So yeah, it's very convenient. And then the other thing with digital content, with digital games, is that you don't have to worry about shelf space. I have a huge shelf full of games, yeah, it takes a lot of space. But whereas when it comes to digital games, the only space that's gonna be taken up is your hard drive. So yeah, that's really the only space digital games are gonna take up. So also, I completely forgot about this one thing recently with digital content. This actually kind of goes into an issue with the having your digital content taken away. The whole thing with Discovery. From what I remember, Sony, the licensing deal with Sony, some contract went up, and a lot of Discovery content was going to be removed from the PlayStation Store. Luckily, that was resolved, and that content is there to stay. But that goes into the issue with digital content. You know, it can just be taken away from you, even if you bought it, which shouldn't be legal. But yeah, so there you have it. I apologize if I kind of rambled on, and I apologize if this is kind of all over the place, but yeah, so that's kind of why I prefer physical games. Just preservation. Don't have to worry about losing access to this access to it because there's full playable build on the disc for the most part, usually. Yeah, that being said, I'm not looking forward to a digital-only future, but that's honestly the way I see things going, unfortunately. So, but that being said, nowadays I feel that physical media is more important than ever. So, yeah, and I should also mention, I do also have a Steam account. I do also have games on PC. When it comes to physical media, I don't mind having all my content digitally on PC. When it comes to PC, I don't mind it as much. But when it comes to consoles and handhelds and whatnot, I much prefer to own a physical copy. I will always, unless I have no choice but to buy it digitally, I'll usually just go with the physical copy. It'd have to be on a stupid good deal in order for me to buy a game digitally. So, and that's also one thing I kind of want to do in a separate video, kind of talk about my thoughts on emulation, which I'm in full support of. I'll talk about that in a separate video, and kind of like what my thoughts are on emulation, when I would emulate, yeah. So, but there you have it. That's my spiel on physical games. I apologize if I kind of went all over the place, and I apologize if I got some things wrong or some shit. But yeah, if you guys have anything to say about physical games, let me know. Do you prefer physical games? Do you prefer digital games? Why and why not? So yeah, there you have it. Thanks so much for watching. I'm CoffinSkate signing off, and have a great rest of your day.